If the 80-20 principle says that 80% of our results come from 20% of the things that we work on, why do we even spend time on the other 80%? From being focused to taking action, the key to success comes from finding out what's your one thing that you can do that will outweigh the odds of bringing you success. Taking action requires that you choose what next actions to do. And while you want to select the things that you are confident you can do to build up the habit of repeating the success, it's important to know that not all actions are created equal. Today, I want to talk about some of the key takeaways that I got from the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. I've heard this book referenced many times before by authors that I've read and on podcasts, and I thought that the title gave it all away. Eventually, when you're trying to focus, you have to ask yourself what Keller calls the one question. If you want to go further and get the results that you want the most, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And I'm trying to think about how this applies to all areas of our lives, including, the books that we read, what we're choosing to pick up and consume, and every other area of our life, where we want to think about how the idea of priority is actually singular. To focus, we can only pay attention to one thing at a time. And in the book, Keller brings up the point that for most of history, the use of the word priority was singular in being the most important thing to do. It wasn't until sometime in the 20th century that this idea got demoted to something that required levels and layers of complexity to differentiate from one important thing to the next, which we all started considering as priorities. So in this video, I really wanted to make it actionable on what you need to have in place in order to do your one thing. So here are some of the strategies based on what he talks about in the book. You need to protect your time and time block. You've got to learn how to say no, find comfort in chaos, support your health, have a supportive environment as well, and move what he calls from E to P. So let's start with protecting your time with time blocks. We all know that life gets in the way of our best intentions to do something. So if you're going to set big goals and turn them into next actions, as well as use this focusing question to determine the one thing that's going to get you disproportionate results, you need to block off time to focus on it. And because this one thing will propel you forward so much, it needs to be the first thing that you focus on each day before you do anything else. So make sure that you put it in your calendar as that one thing or a time block for deep work, and stick to just doing that one thing before you start the rest of the work for the day or going to the gym or whatever else you're going to get on with your morning routine with. This is how I make sure that I'm able to get things like my weekly newsletter and these videos done before I start work or do any other parts of my morning routine. It's the very first thing that I do every day. You're going to have to say no, often a lot, to protect your time blocks. It may be saying no to yourself and giving in to other distractions, or to your friends who want you to stay up late watching fight night when your time block is scheduled for early the next morning. As well, you'll also be saying no to all of your other obligations until you've completed the block of time on your one thing. Now, when we approach the one thing this way and block time to do it, other parts of our life and other tasks will become unnecessary or irrelevant. And this is okay and totally normal. It takes a little bit to get used to the comfort of this chaos though. It's easy to feel guilty at first when having to see such a mess unfurl around you, but that's how you do your best on what you're focused on the most. Now, these ideas with focusing on your one thing and having to manage all of the chaos that can often come because you're so dialed in and focused on getting to those big goals that you have, you really want to support your health through this all. High performance demands a lot from your health. And without good health, whatever your one thing is won't be able to keep going for long. Exercise, eat well, sleep right. The core foundations of deep health support you on your mission of focus and intention on this one thing. And I think that Keller sums it up really nicely in the book on what he calls the highly productive person's daily energy plan. He says, meditate and pray for spiritual energy, eat right, exercise, and sleep sufficiently for physical health, hug, kiss, and laugh with loved ones for emotional energy, set goals, plan, and calendar for mental energy, and then time block your one thing for business energy. So with this, we also want to have a supportive environment. Joseph Campbell talks about having a bliss station, that time and place for finding your bliss and doing your most purposeful work. A supportive environment helps to protect your time block and prevents you from getting off track. You need to shape that path. When you walk through your house on the way to your bliss station, consider what you run into. If you see a newspaper or a stack of mail, and then go past the TV and someone in your family has the morning news playing and so on, this path is going to lead down the road to distraction. In having a supportive environment, you know what it takes to stay in the zone until your one thing and that time block for your one thing are done. And now the next point that he talks about, which really intrigued me at first, was what he called move from E to P. And this point really hit me hard. We usually think of the entrepreneurial mindset as a good thing. It's what helps you to be a self-starter, and even if you work for someone else, being driven is what gets you the promotions and praise that are nice to have when you work so hard. But as the author suggests, this mentality will only get you so far and doesn't take you all the way to the success that you want. To act on your one thing, you have to move from E, entrepreneurial, to P for purposeful. They talk about it this way. They say, highly productive people don't accept the limitations of their natural approach as the final word on their success. When they hit a ceiling of achievement, they look for new models and systems, better ways to do things to push them through. They pause just long enough to examine their options. They pick the best one and then they're right back on track. They used the analogy of chopping wood in the book, and it felt like something that I could relate to and sounded just like me. The entrepreneurial person shoulders the axe and heads straight for the woods to chop wood and work hard to swing relentlessly until the job is done. The purposeful person, on the other hand, first asks, "Where can I get a chainsaw?" and pauses just long enough to make the job more efficient. This is just like the sharpen your saw habit from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. When it comes to areas in which you want to perform your best, you need to focus on your one thing to start to shift you towards mastering it and building the skills that you need. But life doesn't need to be like this for absolutely everything. Using that chopping wood example, I love the feeling of chopping wood. It's a great workout that's actually useful. To me, this is the point of working out in the first place. To be physically capable enough to be self-reliant. Chopping wood at my cottage is an act of meditation as much as it is a way to provide the heat source for the place. Sometimes you do need a log splitter or chainsaw, but that slower pace and relaxation of the cottage gets interrupted by the smell of gasoline and the loud chugging of those engines. So I think the distinction here is remember that focusing question for your one thing, but don't take the rest of life so seriously. Now I want to finish off this video by talking about some other ways that we can take action with what we've learned and the takeaways from this book. Start by writing the one thing phrase at the top of every project or list of goals that you have. It's a way to key in and remind you of that one thing that's going to have the disproportionate results that you really want to focus on. You can also write it on an index card or sticky note and keep it visible when you're working at your desk or on your computer. And think about how you can apply the one thing to all of the areas of your life. This can be which book you're choosing to read to learn more on a topic. It can be to help improve your health, relationships, the fun that you're having, everything. Thank you again for tuning into the video. I hope that you found it helpful and you can take action on some of what we talked about today. And this video was a crossover from the Finding Flow newsletter, where I write about these actionable takeaways on the journey to finding your flow and living a more meaningful and high performance lifestyle. So be sure to check out the newsletter for weekly content just like this one. And if you haven't already, I've got a lot of new people joining the channel lately, so make sure that you hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel in order to stay tuned for the next video.